Hi, welcome to Middle School Back to School Night 2020 English Language Arts. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that there's the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Only one question per comment, please. That way we can make sure that we field the questions appropriately and we actually make sure we answer all of the questions. You can ask, of course, as many questions as you would like. We may hold off on answering some questions if we know that they will be discussed during the presentation, and we will also have further Q&A time at the end. If you have specific questions about your child, please email the teachers directly. Today, we're going to do some introductions to the English Language Arts team, then what learning looks like in English Language Arts across the middle school, introduce you to our program, and then you'll hear from the 6th and 7th grade teachers about what your child is working on currently, and we'll finish with a question and answer period. So given that we're going to start with introductions, I'm here. We can start with me. Hi, I'm Courtney Almarino. I am the English Language Arts Department lead, and while I don't teach a discrete English Language Arts class this year because I'm the Language Arts lead in Humanities 8, I'm still very much involved in both the curriculum and the instructional practices of English Language Arts in grades 6 and 7. I'm originally from Seattle, but I've lived overseas my entire adult life. After graduating from college, I moved to Muscat to teach at the American International School of Muscat, Oman, where I met my husband. I spent 5 years there. Teaching middle school language arts and social studies. I did dabble in high school a little bit. I took over for somebody's sabbatical and taught high school history for a semester and came running back to middle school because I love it so much. Since then, in 2012, my husband and I got married and we moved to AES. So we've been at AES for 9 years now. This is our 9th year, and we love it here. We have 2 small children. Zimri is just starting 1st grade and Shanti is starting kindergarten. I love AES. I love Delhi. I love getting to know kids about what they're reading and their writing and their thinking. I love middle school. It is just such an incredible time to watch that be experienced and go along with the kids in their brain development and starting to ask some really interesting questions. So I'm really excited to get to know your kids this year and work with their teachers on their curriculum and instructional practices. We're now going to hear from Lori, who is teaching grade 6.
Hi, I'm Laurie Luby, and I will be teaching grade 6 English Language Arts this year. I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, and have spent the last 25 years working at different international schools around the world. I have a husband and 3 children, one of whom will be attending AES. As a parent, I know the positive impact that a relationship between a student and his or her teacher can have on a child's self-esteem and their willingness to learn. I'm excited about having a whole year to work with your child and learn from them and empower them to take chances to become a better reader and writer. These 2 skills will ensure their future as a lifelong learner. So what better way to do that than putting your eyes on books and your pen to paper? I know that we started virtually, and it's quite difficult to form those relationships, but I find that we're off to a great start. I look so forward to meeting them in person and to a whole year learning together. Thank you.
So thank you to Lori for that. We're now going to hear from Amanda, who's teaching in 7th grade.
Hi, my name is Amanda Rydberg. I am a new teacher to AES. This will be my 8th year of teaching. I've spent the last 7 years teaching in Mexico. And although I'm originally from Minnesota, a lot of places around the world have kind of started to become my home. I really got a taste for international schooling and teaching abroad. And I look forward to a new adventure this year in New Delhi. I'm also looking forward to teaching 7th grade. In the past, I've had everything from 6th grade through 12th grade, and I love students of all ages, and I love working with them and talking about reading and writing and thinking. And I think that this group so far has been really great, and it's going to be a wonderful year with them.
Okay, we're now going to do an overview of what you can expect out of English Language Arts this year as a whole program, and really talk about it 6 through 8. And because we do embed all of this into the 8th grade humanities curriculum. If we boil down our entire department to sort of one key phrase, it would be this: that we teach the reader and the writer, not the reading and the writing. And really what this means is that we are focused on getting to know your kids, their strengths, their areas for growth, and in helping them to grow. That's really just that's what it is, rather than teaching a set curriculum and saying, here, this is what you need to learn in grade 7 or grade 6. We get to know where they are and help them grow. And it's the most empowering way we know to teach. Our department is grounded in a few beliefs. We believe in modeling effective literacy strategies and skills because we know that learners learn best when they have a model in front of them of what an effective way of doing it looks like. We believe in providing opportunities for students to engage in authentic literacy experiences because we want them to know that reading and writing is real world stuff. It's not just in a classroom. And we believe in building independence by providing time for students to practice and reflect upon their abilities. This independent practice is really important to our program. We can't grow as learners if we're not practicing. This is true with reading and writing. It's true with sports. It's true with instruments. It's true with anything that you're trying to learn. Practice is what actually helps us get better at it. So spending a big chunk of time practicing being good, strong readers and writers is a really important part of our curriculum. This year, you can expect your child to be in both discrete and woven together reading and writing units. And what this means is simply that there will be some units that are just really about reading and some that are just about writing, and then some that are about really the weave between the two. You can also expect that there will be a focus on reflection and skills and strategies for growth, not on corrections. We really want kids thinking about the strategies that work for them, really reflecting on where they have strengths and skills and where they have an area for growth in their skills, and then reflecting on what strategies work and don't work to help them grow in those areas. You can expect your child to experience whole class, small group, and individual instruction. Right now, it's mostly whole class instruction because we're trying to gather a lot of data on who your kids are as readers and writers and thinkers. As we move further into the year, you can expect to see more small group and individualized instruction. And we utilize the workshop model. This means that we will do 5 to 15-minute mini lessons, allow for a lot of student work time. And then during that student work time, we are pushing in and conferring with them, asking them about their reading and their writing work on an individual or small group basis. Again, that's not exactly how it looks right now because we're trying to do a lot of the setting of routines and gathering a lot of data. But as we have a much stronger knowledge of who your kids are as readers and writers, you'll start to see more of that big practice time with us teaching into individual or small groups of kids. What you can do at home is to ask your child about their reading and writing. We want you talking to them about their reading and writing. Middle school is a lot of when kids stop talking to their parents as much and stop sharing their work as much. And we don't want that to happen. We really want kids sharing their work with you. And one of the ways that you can make sure that happens is if you carve out some family reading time at home. This is actually the number one most important thing you can do to support your child as a literacy student. It means putting all of our devices away and really carving out saying, you know what, as a family, we're going to sit down and read for 30 minutes. And you don't have to be reading the same thing, though I love it. We love it when you do read the same books as your kids because you can talk to them about it. Plus, middle grade and young adult literature is amazing. If you need any recommendations, you can talk to your child's teacher or me. And we have tons of recommendations for whatever kind of reader you might be. But carve out family reading time at home. Reading is the number one thing that we know can help support kids with academic success across the disciplines. And so, if we want them to feel successful in science, in art, in math, then empowering them as readers is a really important piece of that. So, read at home, please. And please only offer positive feedback unless you've been specifically asked otherwise to give feedback on a particular aspect of their reading or writing. We can handle the constructive criticism in class and those growth-oriented pieces. What we want from you is to be excited. Show your child that you are excited about their reading and their writing. That's gonna open them up to be able to feel more comfortable talking about their work or to continue talking about what they're doing. Lastly, I just focused before we start hearing about what they're working on right now, a key focus of the middle school language arts program at AES is that the focus is on helping kids to feel empowered as readers and writers. We want them owning their learning so that no matter what class they're in, they can know that they have strategies to make sense of what they're reading and to communicate appropriately and effectively through their writing. So we really want them to feel empowered as readers, writers, and thinkers. We're now going to hear from Lori about what's going on in 6th grade language arts right now.
So in grade 6, what are they going to learn and how are they going to learn it? Well, they're going to learn based on the Common Core State Standards. AES follows the Common Core State Standards, and you can find it here at this website and read all about the specific standards that they will learn this year. You can also check other grade levels there. Now, the standards are taught differently depending on the school. Cutting edge schools use the workshop. The workshop meets the children where they are instead of expecting the child to meet the program. It starts like this. The first 5 to 7 minutes is a mini lesson, a big concept, a big idea. I model that for the lesson, and that's actually doing it, whether it's reading or writing. It's uninterrupted time for them to be doing that skill. Now, I can confer with them one-on-one. I can pull small strategy groups, or they can be working with a partner. Partnerships are very important in the workshop method because they learn to give good feedback to their peers and also to receive it as well. This is something we explicitly teach them that they may have learned in grade 5. And the last part of the workshop is sharing. They get to share how they applied one of the strategies that they learned, or they can actually read a piece of writing or just listen to others share as well. It's very different than the traditional model where every kid is reading the same book at the same grade level. This is not effective. Research has shown this is not an effective way to grow as a reader and writer. It's important that we get the kids writing at their level with good models, or reading books at their just right level as well. Your child might not like to read. You may have a hard time getting to pick up a book. What if you're concerned that your child is not reading like their peers? What if they read when they were 2 and they read a book when they were 3? The workshop will meet them where they are and help them grow towards the standard base at their level. It's a partnership. Parents, teachers, students, peers, we all work together to be setting those goals and to be working onward. Teacher feedback is very important. Peer feedback, choosing the just right books, reading lots of books across the genres, learning from one another, but most importantly, doing it. I like to compare it to learning how to, I think I used surfing with the students the other day. If I wanted to be a good surfer, watching a video on surfing or listening to someone to tell me about surfing would not be as effective as actually getting out there with a surfboard and trying it. It's very important, utmost important, that they actually have time to read and write each day, and the workshop will allow them that time. So I know this is a lot. Online learning is very different than the classroom. I appreciate your support and your patience as we're trying to build a community of readers and writers, and as I foster my relationships with the students. It will take some time, but we're off to a great start. And I look forward to a great year. Here, your child can check the website on what we're doing through the week. It's easy to see Zoom and not Zoom. All the lessons are on Google Classroom, and I'm always available to answer their questions. So let's go.
Thank you to Lori for that. We're now going to hear from Amanda about what's going on in grade 7 right now.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to talk you through the beginning of our units for this year. So you might be wondering, what are we learning right now? The question is really simple. We're learning reading and writing. But to make things a little bit more complicated or a little more complex, we're really focusing on the volume and the standards about students reading at their level, students making a habit out of reading, and students who are writing as a habit and writing for publishing and writing for a variety of purposes. The thing that I love about both Writing Workshop and Common Core standards is that they're very customizable. And so what I'll be doing as I get to know your students is really customizing this experience for them based on their individual needs. But in general, right, we're learning about who we are as readers and writers with a big focus on that personal identity and what that means to them. Because for kids, they're writing about what's important to them, what matters. And that's how you get kids hooked on writing, by giving them an audience for their thoughts and a way to share themselves. In this case, we will have some assessments still. So even though we have those big overarching standards, to put it simply, everything is going to be assessed. Everything is going to be, I'm going to be looking at everything for what does this tell me about the student and where they need to go and what they need to advance to. And so we'll have plenty of informal assessment to kind of help me guide them in the right direction. But then also we'll have some major assessments like the DRA, kind of a standardized reading assessment, on-demand writing assessments, which will happen that day in class. Show me what you can do on your own without help. And the students will be assembling a reading ladder. We started it already, so if you want to take a look at theirs, it's already in their reading notebook. But this is going to grow over the course of the semester, over the course of the next several weeks, to kind of see how students are getting texts and a variety of texts. And basically just kind of looking at their readers and writers' notebooks as a whole and seeing how they're doing. I wanted to direct your attention to one other thing while we're here, and that's the Parent Portal tab on my webpage. So we had talked, I had sent out an email asking you how you'd like to be contacted on a regular basis, and the majority of people said a newsletter. Not everyone said that they wanted an email, and so I want to be respectful of that. So if you would like this sent to you on a regular basis in your inbox, please sign up. But if you just want to look in occasionally and see what's going on, how you can support your student, how you can, keep up with what's happening, go ahead and check out this part of the website anytime. A lot of parents were also asking, what can I recommend for my student? At the bottom of my page, we have some class bookshelf recommendations. A lot of these came from the students themselves. Some of them came from me and what I'm reading. And so really, we're just trying to build a little writing community here. So there's a chance to kind of find me on Goodreads and follow along, and I love to follow people back. Because really, in the 21st century, that is part of what having a reading life means, is sharing what you read with others. So those are the overall goals for students, and I would love to talk to you more about them if you ever have questions, but to keep it short and simple, we want students reading a lot and writing a lot because we know that that's what makes them successful.
All right, that's it from us. And now it's your turn to ask us some questions. And hopefully we've got some answers for you. Thank you.
ELA team, really appreciate the presentation that you put together. And also, Courtney did a pre-opening webinar that maybe you had a chance to watch. She can speak a bit more about that in a moment. But those two things combined together, I think, should highlight we have quite a strong and very rich language arts program. And by the end of middle school, if your child's not loving to read, I'd be very surprised if they've not found something that they love to read. For now, we've got some time for your questions. So remember, I think Courtney just mentioned, put them into the Q&A, and we'll try and answer them either live, or we might type the answer to you if it's a specific one. But remember, if you've got a specific question around your child, then please feel free to reach out to your child's teacher directly. But if you've got a general question that would really benefit the entire audience, then please type it in the Q&A for us. Courtney, I think we have one question around, sort of a question around seeking to understand. I think it's more about getting feedback, or how perhaps you work with the conferring with students while we're not face-to-face. And I think you probably have shared that in the past, so over to you.
Yeah, so a much more extensive answer to this question can be found in the recorded pre-opening webinar on the AES site, but a little quick answer to it now. Right now, we're doing a lot of gathering of our baseline evidence, so there's a lot of whole class time that's going on. But as we move forward in the year, you're gonna see a lot more of narrowing it down to small groups for conferring, as well as to one-on-one conferring time, and that happens via Zoom. Actually, some of my favorite conferences I've ever done in my 14 years have been via Zoom, because you actually can have a little bit more time. In the classroom, we're really constricted by the fact that kids got to get out of there in 80 minutes. And so you're looking at trying to tighten up those conferences. Of course, looking over their shoulder and seeing their work is fantastic. And that's the benefit of being together in the classroom. The benefit of being here is they can share their screen with you and put a picture of what they're working on right there up on the screen. They can even just hold up a piece of paper and show us. And we can be giving live feedback one-on-one and in small groups that way. So it's actually really exciting, and we can go a bit longer. We can have actually 10 to 15 minute conferences one-on-one with kids, which we almost never get in the classroom. So there are benefits to both models, but I can guarantee to you that they're going to get some really incredible one-on-one and small group instruction, whether we are in the classroom or we're virtual in Zoom.
Hey, thanks, Courtney. And I think your team did some PD at the beginning of the year with Columbia University, basically about how to do this online. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yeah, so it's ongoing professional development. Teachers College has been providing, they're the leads in workshop and in literacy research and professional development. We've been taking some professional development from them. We all have, and it's all based on what the virtual model might look like. It takes workshop, which is obviously generally done in the classroom, and it says, okay, here's how you shift it to online learning, and maybe even shift it back. Here's what it could be in hybrid mode. So we did 2 days of that at the beginning of the year, and we're going to have that actually ongoing throughout the entire year this year, which is exciting.
Thank you, Courtney. I'm going to put another one on you, but Laurie and Amanda, you're welcome to jump in. But I'm not going to pick on the newbies here tonight, but you're welcome to add anything. There's a question around reading books that kids might read by grade level. And I know that you might have some ideas about how we think about leveling books. So if any of you can take that, but Courtney, you might want to kick it off.
I'll kick it off. Yes, there are general recommendations, but it's not as much by individual grade level. We tend to look at it as middle grade reading because kids' reading levels and interests are so different. So you might have a 6th grader who's even a little bit ready for a young adult novel that doesn't deal with Young adult tends to be more high school. So they might be ready for a young adult novel that doesn't deal with some of the more precarious stuff that can happen in some of the young adult novels. Whereas you might have an eighth grader who is really invested in some of the middle grade novels, which are fantastic and does not mean they're reading at a lower level. But kids are at different levels and have really different interests. So rather than saying, hey, here's what you read in sixth grade, this is what we're doing right now, is taking a bunch of time to really learn who these kids are as readers, and say, rather than here's a sixth grade reading list, it's more like, hey, here's a curated reading list for you. And right now, especially, it's a team effort between teacher and student to build that reading list. And then as the year goes on, hopefully it's more handed off to the kid, and we're just checking in and saying, how's that reading list coming along? And oh my gosh, I just read this book, or I came across this book. I think you'd really like it. Check it out, maybe put it on your reading list. But Amanda and Laura, you guys can chime in on that as well.
I think you said it well. We're looking for sharing just what your student will be interested in, and not what sixth graders or seventh graders in general are interested in.
Thank you. So just to make sure I'm clear, that you also confer with kids and make sure that they know that they can reach out to different books. And also our librarian is more than happy to help kids find books that might interest them as well. So there's plenty of people in the community that we can connect with to make sure that kids are finding challenging books, but just right books so they actually get into it and want to keep reading and not become frustrated by the experience, which perhaps may have been my experience as a child. I wish I was a middle schooler now. So it's a good question. They're all good questions, but here's a different question. Does the writing workshop help students understand the importance of writing and rewriting? I'm going to guess we'll say like reworking. Does anyone want to take that one?
I'm always happy to talk about the writing, but if either of my colleagues want to take it, they're welcome to. Yes, absolutely it does. It's in fact almost exclusively about that. So it's really about empowering kids to be able to look at their writing and go, okay, what's next in this? What do I need to do in this? So much so that, you know, to a certain point, we have to go, okay, whatever it is right now is great, because we're going to move on to the next thing, and you're still going to keep growing as a writer. But the idea that a piece of writing in front of you needs to be reworked and revised, and the revision aspect is actually the biggest part of the writing process. In the workshop model, the whole writing process is really looked at through a revision lens. So if you're generating ideas, it's not just the first one that comes to your mind, which is what every middle schooler wants to do. But nope, generate more, and rehearse your thinking and rethink your thinking, and then plan out your writing in 3 different ways and see where that takes you. And then lots of different ways to revise. So with the revision, we really rely heavily on mentor texts, looking at what other writers do and saying, I want to try that. As well as we focus on grammar as a revision strategy and as a craft move, that you're using grammar to convey the message that you want to convey. And then you proofread at the end with a lot of tools to make sure your grammar is correct, or you're making the decisions to make it incorrect if you really want to do that. But that's a decision that's made. So the whole workshop is about making sure that the writing process is an act of revision and thinking about your work, and making sure that you're making deliberate decisions, that this is in fact how you want your writing to look, sound, and feel.
Awesome. Thanks, Courtney. We are just about out of time. I have, let's see if we can get one more question in before we need to head off to our PE webinar next. The question is, do we have some books that have to be taught in middle school because they're classics and kids should read them across the middle school, but in 6th grade? I guess I'm going to throw that one to you, Courtney, because you're the person that's returning. That would be unfair to give that one to newbies.
The short answer is no. The short answer is there's not. I mean, it would be hard to determine what book has to be taught in 6th grade or 7th grade or 8th grade. That would really vary from culture to culture, from school to school, from language to language. Really, it is about, sure, we expose kids to books that come up frequently, right? So we'll do book talks and make sure there's an exposure and talk about why it's important to read classics. But we're not going to push kids into classics. It's just not something that happens in our curriculum, because what we find is that when you push kids into books they're not interested in reading, they stop reading altogether. There are a lot of wonderful lists out there, and we can certainly provide you with them or your kids with them, of common books that are read in various grade levels. And certainly we let kids know about those. And a simple look on Pinterest will give you wonderful lists, actually. But we don't have particular lists of books that must be taught at each grade level. We do read aloud at each grade level, though we're figuring out what that looks like in a virtual model. But you will have read aloud where kids are actively going through a book, an interactive read aloud with their teacher. So we're modeling all of the reading skills that we want them trying in their own independent reading book. And the research is really clear that this is the most effective way to get kids reading, where we model for them in a shared literary experience, like a read aloud book, and then they're practicing in a book that they're actually interested in reading. And it sets them up to be able to read, especially once they get to high school, where they will be told, here, read this. It sets them up to be able to utilize those skills that they've been taught all through middle school. Middle school is really when we keep or lose readers in a big way, and we want to keep them. And we will basically do anything we need to do to keep them reading. Or if they've started to fall off the reading train after elementary school, we're like tugging them back in any way we know how, because that's what's going to help them be successful. They can't get good at skills that they're not practicing. So whatever it takes to get them to read and practice those skills, we're going to do it.
Great, thank you, Courtney. Okay, so that's all the time we have for our ELA presentation tonight. Don't forget, there is a recording. If anyone's asking you about it, it will be shared. There's also Courtney's pre-opening ELA webinar, which is on the AES site. So if you're interested in learning more, or if you want some specific information related to your own child, please reach out to these wonderful teachers. They have a wealth of knowledge. So thank you for coming tonight. We will probably see many of you in the PE webinar. So that's all from us for now. Thank you.